I actually need to start today, if you'll bear with me, with a retraction slash clarification. I'll call it a clarification. Some of you guys know that recently I did a video about Andrew Yang, and I I watched that video again, and I wasn't necessarily fair in a couple areas. And I decided that I should redo the video because, you know, I don't want to just engage in useless mudslinging, especially towards a candidate who is still an outsider grassroots candidate. I'm not the biggest fan of Andrew Yang. I have some very strong disagreements with him. He's not my first choice at all, but he does have some good ideas, which I've always felt that way, and I think it's important that he gets on the debate stage because of those ideas, even though he's not my first choice, and I still have some strong disagreements with him. But I watched that video, and I felt like I said a few things, and I made a particular analogy that even though my intention wasn't malicious by any means, it really wasn't, it came off poorly. And I watched the video, and I kind of thought, this isn't a good representation of how I feel about this candidate. I just kind of only focused on the negative, and I brushed upon, well, he has some good ideas, and then I didn't expand upon it. So first, I'm going to talk about what I did wrong in that video and where I messed up. And then I'm going to talk about the ideas Andrew Yang has that I like a lot and why I think it's good he's going to be on the debate stage because of those ideas. And then I'll talk about where I have my disagreements with him, which will pretty much be similar to what I said in that first video if you saw it. I mean, all the disagreements I have with him, I stand by. I don't retract any of that at all. But I made a particular analogy that was not fair. And so I kind of wanted to clear the air on that. And that analogy was the Howard Schultz thing. So what I said was I said that Andrew Yang is kind of like Howard Schultz, but with some good ideas. Now, I meant that as more poking fun at Howard Schultz than anything else. That was how I intended it. Because, the idea was, well, they're both entrepreneurs. Andrew Yang actually has policy ideas, though. Some I agree with, some I strongly disagree with. Howard Schultz has no idea whatsoever. That was my intention. It did not come across that way in the video. I watched the video, and it did not come across that way. So whatever my intentions were, it doesn't matter. It did not come across that way. And I'll say this, when you hear Howard Schultz speak, a lot of people, even people that agreed with me that Andrew Yang was not a great candidate, were like, Ron, Howard Schultz, come on, that's a bit harsh. And even though I didn't intend it in that way, it was unfair. I will say this. I disagree with Andrew Yang on a lot of stuff, again. But if somebody told me there was a hypothetical where one of those two people was going to be president, either Howard Schultz or Andrew Yang, and I had to pick one, I would pick Andrew Yang 100 times out of 100. I would rather have Andrew Yang be president every day for the rest of my life than have Howard Schultz be president for a week. The more Howard Schultz speaks, the more I'm just, holy shit, dude, what are you doing? That's the only thing I can say when Howard Schultz is speaking. Holy shit, dude, what are you doing? When Andrew Yang speaks, I think those are some good ideas. I really disagree there. I have those various responses. Hey, that's a great idea. I really disagree there. I can't go there. And yeah, you're not my first choice. So that is a world of difference. And again, when I made that comment, it was off the cuff. It was intended more to poke fun at Howard Schultz. It did not come across that way. So I do retract that analogy as it came across in the video. And yeah, Andrew Yang is infinitely better than Howard Schultz. I don't see how anyone could feel otherwise. And a lot of the big Andrew Yang fans, they've already boycotted my channel. A lot of them said they're unsubscribing and boycotting me. So I guess none of them will see this. But maybe the word will spread. So that was something that I didn't come off right and was an irresponsible thing on my part. And I apologize for that. The other thing, I didn't focus on any of the ideas that he has that I like. So I'm going to talk about the ideas I like first. Then I'm going to talk about, why he's still not my candidate of choice. But, just kind of where all that stands. Okay, so here's something from his website. Which, by the way, some people were like, you never went to his website. I did go to his website, but, whatever. All right, so here's something really interesting. A local journalism fund. Andrew Yang favors a local journalism fund. Let's read this from the website. Local newspapers and websites are withering away. In small towns and communities across the country, local newspapers are a thing of the past. All right, so I will initiate a local journalism fund, a dedicated $1 billion fund operated out of the FCC that will make grants to companies, nonprofits, and local governments and libraries to help local newspapers, periodicals, and websites. And I'm sure he also means digital newspapers. So the goals are to affirm local journalism as a public good. All right, so this is something that no other presidential candidate, to my knowledge, is bringing up. It's really, and I'm not saying that other candidates would be opposed to it, but Andrew Yang, to my knowledge, is the only candidate talking about something like this. And it's really cool it's coming from somebody like him because he does have that background in big tech. Because he has that background, he understands what technological advancements can do for media, and he can speak on it on the debate stage. Realistically, this will likely not come up in the debates, but man, I wish it would. I really hope Andrew Yang gets an opportunity to speak about this on the debate stage. And I applaud him for bringing this up. Not many, I don't know of any other presidential candidates who are. And I knew this about him, and in that video, I didn't even mention it. And honestly, that's the main reason I wanted to redo this video. Because I rewatched it, I'm like, you didn't even mention the journalism thing, which I had applauded him for in the past. So I think it's really cool he's bringing that up. Some people might be like, oh, that seems like not a big deal. No, that's a huge thing. Because again, I'm coming at this from the lens of somebody who sees the problem of the media in this country. I used to say our media structure is toxic. Now I say we don't have a media structure, and that's toxic. And there are some different theories out there on how we can change that. And one of them is having an oversight committee to invest funds to lurkle. It's a new form of journalism where somebody just lurks. They just stand in a corner and they lurk. And you ask them, what happened in your corner today? And they tell you. And they get a fair hourly wage. No, but where you can put funds into local journalism. I think that's huge. You don't hear presidential candidates talk about that because, let's be honest, it's not a hot button issue. But if we had a stronger media in this country, which keep in mind with the Press Freedom Index, the United States barely in the top 50. If we had a stronger media in this country, a lot of things would change. So I applaud him for bringing that up, and that perspective on the debate stage from a presidential candidate would be huge. So that's one of the reasons I'm glad he's going to be on the debate stage. So in that video, I did not mention that, and I was wrong for that. Also, an idea that he is in support of, that I am in support of, which, by the way, is not a popular idea. A lot of you guys disagree with me on this one on the stream because we did a segment about it before. Voting age 16. Andrew Yang's for making the voting age 16, so am I. I think that if you are letting somebody operate a vehicle that weighs thousands of pounds and could kill somebody if mistakes are made, which they are, that person can cast a ballot. That's what I think. And I've arrived at this perspective as somebody who has toured a lot of colleges, especially has toured a lot of colleges during election seasons because I'm billed as a political act. And I talk to a lot of students who the only reason they're not voting is because they're not old enough to. They're very informed on the issues, and I think they ought to have the right to vote. Some people make the argument that, oh, somebody under 18, they're not equipped with the life experience or the decision making skills or whatever it may be to cast a ballot. I disagree with that. I think there are high information voters and low information voters of all ages. That's just how it is. There's people who vote for president every 4 years, and the factors they take into account have nothing to do with the president. They just kind of, do I have more money right now? Is it because of a tax bill the president passed, or is it just because of the way a 401k fluctuated? Doesn't matter. That's how I decide who I'm going to vote for president. How are gas prices looking? There's a lot of people, they talk about that when they decide the president has nothing to do with gas prices. People do that all the time. So why not let 16-year-olds vote? To me, that makes no sense. Being against it, I think is, I don't want to say, well, yeah, it's ageist, actually, I think. I mean, it's not like, if we were saying, like, 8-year-olds or something like that, okay, it's a bit fair to be like, you know what, let's let them, develop emotionally and develop ideas and critical thinking skills a little more. But 16, you can drive a car. I think you should cast a ballot too. So, yeah, I think the voting age should be 16. So does Andrew Yang. So those are the ideas that he has. Those are some of the ideas. There's other, Medicare for all. He's good on that. Now, where do I disagree with Andrew Yang? Living wages is the big thing. He does not support living wages. And I know when I brought that up, well, the UBI will supplement living wages. No. You either support living wages or you don't. He does not. He has a soft spot for big tech. He doesn't want to do anything to break up Google or Amazon or Facebook or anything like that. He doesn't see Howard Schultz as an issue. He has talked about wanting to tax them more, which is good. But he has this big soft spot for big tech, which, that is his circle. That is where he has spent his professional life. And that is where his parents have spent their professional life. That's his circle. There's nothing wrong with that. The reason I brought that up and the reason I continue to bring that up is because when somebody is an outsider to politics, when you assess a politician, if they've been in politics a long time, well, you assess their past record. How did they vote in the past? How did they conduct themselves? Would this candidate be a good candidate or not? Do I want to vote for this person? When somebody comes from outside of politics, you think, gee, how have they behaved in their life? What have they done in the past? What are their past dealings? What are their past experiences? If somebody has this soft spot for big tech because they're in big tech, you kind of wonder, gee, if their circle becomes the military-industrial complex and the donor class, they might develop a soft spot for them. I don't think that's an unfair thing to make. Just like it's not unfair to say, gee, Donald Trump has screwed over working people and catered to the 1% and rolled with the 1% his entire life. What makes us think he would govern any different? And guess what? He hasn't. So, and no, I'm not comparing Andrew Yang to Donald Trump. I'm just saying when you come from outside of politics, you look at people's professional lives and you use that to assess, well, how would they govern? So those are two things with Andrew Yang that I strongly disagree with. Living wages being the biggest thing. And I know he's big on automation. I do think automation has a place in the conversation. However, with failing infrastructure, the dire need to do something about climate change yesterday, the dire need to invest in new infrastructure, extensive rail, solar, wind. There's no reason we can't put everybody to work in this country who wants to work and at a living wage. There's no reason for it. So, if you don't favor living wages, and again, a UBI, I'm not against a UBI completely. I just think that a UBI needs to have policies accompanying it, like rent control and other safety nets for it to be effective. Somebody said that was a right-wing talking point. If you find somebody on the right who is talking about the need for extensive rent control across the country, please let me know. I'd be really curious to see that person. So this idea, and some people, well, Ron, wouldn't living wages cause rent prices to go up too? Well, no, not necessarily, because again, this involves an exchange. You are getting a living wage in exchange for the labor or service or product you supply. Now, with something like a UBI, now every landlord in the country knows that everybody is just starting out with an extra $1,000 a month, or whatever it would be. So they would just know that, and it just goes straight to the person. Another thing about Andrew Yang that I find concerning is if you go to this part of his website, here's how he says he wants to pay for the UBI. This is from Andrew Yang's website. It would be easier than you might think. Andrew proposes funding a UBI by consolidating some welfare programs. So what does that mean? Current welfare and social programs beneficiaries would be given a choice between the current benefits or $1,000 of cash unconditionally. So that's where he wants to go first. Social and welfare programs. So basically this is redistributing the wealth that we've already generated and that is supposed to go to helping people in the first place. So there you go. There are my big concerns about Andrew Yang. Just a UBI without any type of rent control attached. And again, if there was extensive rent control across the country, and I favor rent control no matter what. I think we need extensive rent control across the country no matter what. But I think without it, a UBI would be rendered useless real quick, and he wants to take it from social programs. That's where he wants to take it from. So basically, the funds already intended to help people, they're just going to revert that. So someone needs to pick between what? Disability benefits and getting their UBI. So those are my concerns with Andrew Yang and why he is not my first choice of a candidate. He does have some good ideas. I'm glad he's going to be on the debate stage. Stumbling over my words today. And he's welcome on the show anytime. I'd love to talk with him further about this. But there you have it. And as far as where I rank him, because something I mentioned in the old video was I put him right alongside Elizabeth Warren. And some people ask me why. Well, because I kind of see them both as similar candidates. They're both better than the other Democratic establishment candidates, which he's not. Andrew Yang's not a Democratic establishment candidate, but he is better than that cast. I mean, I would take him over Klobuchar. I would take him over Cory Booker. I would take him over Kamala Harris. I would take him over the Hickenlooper mom porn guy. I would take him over Gillibrand. Elizabeth Warren, I kind of consider them neck and neck because I see them as very similar candidates, meaning they have some ideas that I like. I don't consider them all that progressive. They're not the greatest candidate, but they do have some ideas that I like. With Elizabeth Warren in particular, someone asked why I singled her out. The drug bill that she was working on with Bernie Sanders that would really cripple Big Pharma in this country. It's a bill that would allow the government to make generics and Big Pharma can do nothing about it. That would really cripple Big Pharma and would really change the way. And when you see people that have to, when you see articles where people are skipping life-saving doses of insulin because they can't afford it, a bill like that would be huge, and Elizabeth Warren's working on that with Bernie Sanders. So that's something about Elizabeth Warren that I really like. Just like Andrew Yang's local journalism idea is something about Andrew Yang that I really like. It's a really cool idea. And I think on the debate stage, he would do a really good job unpacking that idea. So that's why I see those two as the same. They're better than the rest of the Democratic establishment candidates, but I prefer Bernie and Tulsi. So there you go. I hope that clears everything up. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it